So the pro-life states of America are on a collision course with the federal government, particularly the U.S. military. The Pentagon, led by General Lloyd Austin, just a friendly reminder, generals are not supposed to lead the Pentagon. It's illegal, but we keep giving, or I should say Congress keeps giving waivers so that people from the military can take on the civilian leadership of the Pentagon. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that you have a civilian appointed, as a watchdog to lead the Pentagon, so that you don't have the military running itself and getting to be too powerful. You always want the military to be led by civilians and take orders rather than give orders. But that aside, Lloyd Austin was given his waiver, just like Mad Dog Mattis before him. Lloyd Austin, the Raytheon lobbyist and board member, a man who profits off of killing babies in the Middle East, has vowed to protect baby killers here in America. He has vowed that he will defend women's right to kill their babies and have them killed on military bases. He will not allow these pro-life states to get in the way of the Pentagon providing, quote, health care to the women in the military. This is essential for the military to perform abortions on bases, because when women in the military, ever since they started, letting women join the military, especially in combat roles, the rape of these women is quite prevalent. It's quite common. And the military has to cover that up by aborting the product of those rapes, which are the bastard children of the rapist men in the U.S. military. And so that's what Lloyd Austin means when he says, hey, he will defy the Supreme Court and the states that the military bases are located in order to cover up this terrible scandal and the evils of the military. He will commit more evil to cover up, lesser evil, because, as bad as rape is, murder's worse. And so the military, in order to cover up their rapes, they'll commit rape and murder. And we've even been hearing rumors that the military will allow abortionists to set up shop on military bases, so that women in the surrounding areas in these pro-life states where abortion, will be illegal, can go onto the military base, onto federal land where it's federal jurisdiction, and have their babies murdered. And so this is what I mean when I say the states and the feds are on a collision course. Because do you really think that the pro-life states of America, particularly, let's say, a state like Texas, where they have a very openly pro-life attorney general who has vowed, within 10 minutes of the decision being published, he's going to do everything he can to shut down all the abortionists in the state of Texas. How long before the Texas Rangers or the Texas DPS or whoever they send, how long before they're knocking on the gates of Fort Hood and saying to the military, hey, you need to quit killing babies in there. That's illegal in this state. Is the state of Texas and all of these other states like Alabama or Mississippi or South Carolina, of course, home of Fort Sumter, are they supposed to stand by while the feds openly subvert their local laws, their state sovereignty, by serving as sanctuaries for baby murder? You think that these states are just going to stand by if every day there's a conga line of pregnant women with big fat bellies, with something inside them, certainly not a human, walking through the gates of Fort Hood and then walking out at the end of the day with totally flat stomachs, with nothing inside them? You don't think that would become a political problem? You don't think that they'd try and put a stop to it? I don't think we're there yet, but I don't think it would take very many years of this practice for states like Texas to say, you know what, Mr. Military, you need to knock it off. And so, it's a bit of a stretch at this point, honestly, but that could be your new Fort Sumter. You could have a pro-life state trespass, I guess you could say would be the right word maybe, or invade a federal military base to put a stop to abortion. And just like in 1861, when South Carolina took over Fort Sumter, because they said, hey, we seceded from the Union. You federal troops can't occupy this military base anymore. The pro-life states of America would say, hey, you know what? We won in the Supreme Court. We waited 50 years, and you can't kill babies in our state anymore. And I don't think that the federal military will tolerate that. Now, does that mean that there will be a shooting war or something like that? I mean, that's pretty hard to believe at this point. But again, it's normalcy bias. I think it probably. I don't think that that a lot of people would have expected what happened. The gravity of the situation with Fort Sumter at the time. Certainly, the leadership of the South did not understand the gravity of the situation. They would have never gone in there if they'd known that it would have led to, Lincoln declaring all-out war on the South. Now, we didn't have the riots that some people were expecting this weekend. I'll be honest, I played it up because it's fun to play up on Friday. But in my heart of hearts, I did not expect a BLM type of movement in the wake of the Roe v. Wade decision because, frankly, white women and their simps are just not the best constituency for rioting. I mean, they throw temper tantrums, but it's not like you don't have these massive urban centers where they are concentrated and ready to go raid the target in the auto zone. It's just a very different dynamic than you had with BLM. The people who care the most about abortion are privileged suburbanites. You're not going to rebuild the Summer of Love coalition. It's just black people don't love baby murder that much. You're not going to get all the people from the inner city to go and burn, loot, and murder again. And think about it. All these people who are out in force over mad about Roe v. Wade, they were out with the Black Lives Matter stuff too. They were a part of that coalition, but they were one part. They were not the whole thing. This is a subset. The people on the left who are the most passionate about abortion, they are a subset of the population. But on the brighter side, I do think, I want to get back, because I mean, this is good news. I don't want to make the Roe v. Wade decision all about the gloom and doom that might come from it. Because, no matter what happens, it's still a net positive. And part of that positivity, I think, comes from this decision making national divorce much more realistic and, I think, inevitable. It's going to draw a very bold line between the several states. And bold lines like this will divide our societies. And that's a good thing because our societies are very divided. We need to sever the last few links that we have, which are really holding both of us back. The more our differences are highlighted and exacerbated, the more willing you will see people become to severing the few ties that we have left. Leftists are now calling for abolishing the Supreme Court. I'm old enough to remember just a few years ago where it was the right that was all upset with the Supreme Court, and they were writing books, and they were talking, and talking about how the Supreme Court, they're just 9 unelected lawyers, they're totally illegitimate, they have no right to run our society, it's totally undemocratic. And now you have the left talking that way. And this really is the one problem, is that you can't get the left and the right upset at our federal institutions at the same time. You get every few years they kind of have to switch and go back and forth depending on who's winning at any given time. And right now, As far as the Supreme Court is concerned, since Trump put in 3 justices, it seems like, okay, well, the right is winning in the Supreme Court, so now the left hates the Supreme Court. But for a few years, it felt like the left was winning with the Supreme Court for quite a long time, actually. And so it was the conservatives who didn't want the Supreme Court around and wanted to disobey their rulings. And so what I think we really need is for both sides to reject federal institutions simultaneously. And with this gun decision, I think almost that might even have more utility, because the blue states of America, they hate guns. They want to outlaw guns. The Supreme Court just told them, you can't do that. You got to deal with the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment exists, and you got to live with it. Now, if these states secede, of course, they're no longer bound by the Second Amendment. They can do whatever the hell they want. And even though under overturning Roe v. Wade, the states can do whatever they want on abortion anyway, which is what they're so mad about. They're so mad somewhere, some baby in some red state might be born. They can kill kids all they want still in their blue states. But I think that their hatred of the pro-life crowd is so intense that, you could get support for a movement of just, hey, no union with anti-abortion states. Kick them out of the union. And like I said, if blue states leave themselves, they can do whatever they want with guns. They can completely outlaw them. They can kill all the babies they want. They can, while taking away all the guns to supposedly protect the kids. And that's not as radical of an idea as it used to be. I mean, you would think killing your own baby is a pretty radical idea. You would think that at that point, national divorce sounds pretty darn sane. But for a long time, asserting that you have a right to murder your own child was considered totally mainstream, and the idea of national divorce was beyond the pale. And so I think the time has come to split the baby down the middle. And no, I don't mean literally. You sick, sick demons. And, the military defending abortion this way, saying we're going to keep doing it, we're going to do it right, right in your face, just to screw with you people, just to prove how much we hate you to these red states that are banning abortion. Maybe the effect of this would just be to, help turn the American right against the military, which is another thing that I think is very important. One of the right's biggest weaknesses for a long time was how they worshipped the U.S. military undeservedly. But if all these military bases, if they start looking at them, not as, centers of great patriotism and defense of our freedoms, if they instead look at them as baby murder sanctuaries, if every time a conservative looks at a military base, they see that's a den of evil, where children are being slaughtered and harvested for their organs, that would be, I'm not saying it's a terribly negative thing that would happen, although it's already been happening. The military does that routinely. That's what Lloyd Austin is talking about. He's saying, I will not change our policy. Our policy now is to kill babies. And we're not going to stop. So they already are dens of scum and villainy. But for the American right to recognize that, and for that to be the defining characteristic, for them to look at those facilities and say, that's where babies go to die, that would be a positive thing. Because it would be a recognition of the reality which already exists. And it would turn them against these false shepherds, against these poor allies, these people who hate them, these people who do not keep us free, these people who make us less free, and who just go around the world and stir up trouble. And that's why ultimately the U.S. military must be abolished along with every other federal institution in order for us to begin the path towards rebuilding our society. That's when we can start improving ourselves. But first we have to get rid of all of this dead weight, all of these vestigial organs, because they're rotten to the core, and they're going to kill us if we don't excise all of these gangrenous limbs. And I think once we do that, at the end of the road, you'll end up with a very healthy society, a very righteous society. But you have to cut the evil out of the system. You have to cut out the evil system itself. I hope that one of these states tries to send some law enforcement onto these bases once the law is fully in effect and the military knowingly is continually to carry out these practices. I hope that the state tries to send in some folks to investigate and to shut down what they're doing. Because I want to see the military try and resist that. I want to see the military kick out local law enforcement for trying to protect children. I want it all over TV. And I want American conservative voters to see that is what the military is all about. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.